Graduation's tonight
Hmm.
in this nice windstorm.
Oh no.
It's not going to be a good graduation hairdo for us, that's for sure.
We have several New Haven outdoor graduations scheduled for Monday.
Yeah,
And Monday is supposedly like
yeah.
some bad weather. And there's not even much wiggle room for where we put them all because we have, several high schools. So it
Yeah.
should be interesting.
Yeah, my husband is Danbury High, and they have it whether it's raining or not because they can't fit everybody anywhere else except for outside. So I know that feeling.
So Branford had theirs last Wednesday, and the superintendent has a meteorologist friend, so checked with him several times. And then Friday, Guilford, there was like little storms running through, so we moved it up by an hour, and we were great, like because it's out on the green. So we were lucky because 2 years ago, one of my daughters graduated, and we moved it up 2 hours, and it still rained on everyone. But the kids didn't care. They had the best time, so they didn't care. What are you gonna do? Well, why don't I feel bad that we don't have many people here? I'm surprised. I mean, I only heard from one person that wasn't able to make, well, two people actually. So maybe we'll just give it a few more minutes and see. Did any of you guys have time to kind of look? I know the report came in late, so did you have any time to look through it? Okay,
Yep.
good. Awesome. There wasn't anything really new based on what Air had presented it to us. So, but it was nice to read the summaries and see the data charts and kind of all the collection of their data. So they did a really thorough job, which is great. Mm.
Great is not a word I would use.
Well, I feel like the content, I think they really, they dug into the content and the data they collected. Now, did they get every from data from everybody we probably would have wanted? Maybe not. But well, yeah, that's what we want to hear from everybody. Yeah, I just checked my email. I don't see anything from anybody else. So why don't the few of us get started and hopefully some folks will join in. If not, Leslie and I talked about, wanting to try to reconvene again next week, which we can talk about after we kind of go through this. So Leslie, do you want to kind of just jump in? And I know you and I talked yesterday, and I think you had a good idea of how to kind of approach this,
Yeah, absolutely.
evaluate
So
things.
good to see everybody. I think this report exists as the heavy lift, barring kind of our evaluation of it, but this report exists as the heavy lift on this topic. And, I think Representative Rader and I see our this subcommittee's role as digging into this report and coming away with kind of our bigger picture commentary on it. Maybe not bigger picture. It can be more substantive, more nuanced, more specific. But maybe if we frame it in, what are three significant takeaways from this report that we want to co-sign on, that we want to uplift, that we absolutely think are crucial, that people focus on as part of the solutions for the ongoing staffing and just in general special ed issues that we're facing across the state. In addition, what are three things that we want, interject on and say, when we see these three things, these might be issues that we don't co-sign on, that we have issues with, that we have concerns about. We can decide how we want to phrase it. And then, based off of what the strengths are, what the areas of concern are, additional questions that we want to put forth for people to keep at the forefront, because one workload analysis study is not going to fix things. We know what ultimately is going to fix things is continued efforts in districts, at the state level, at the Capitol, and then back again at the schools in this kind of, iterative effect. And we don't want the conversation to stop just with the publication of this report. So I think we should take our role as influencers of ongoing conversations if and when we craft these kind of follow-up questions to accompany what we like about it, what we don't like about it, and what we want to continue to be discussed. And I'm a teacher. I like the rule of threes. It helps us keep it from being a laundry list that no one's going to read. We want to keep that relevant, or keep that in mind, I guess, as we're thinking about the approach. So, Representative Rader, if I missed anything, you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, I think, yeah, because
Team.
Leslie and I met the other day, and I think you're right. I think we look at this, we're not here to, um, the product is the product, right? And this is what SDEs was charged with. That's why they engaged AIR in this. And our role here is, right, to make commentary and recommendations based on that. We can't say to them, go back and do a completely different survey. This was a huge investment just to do this. And I think what we have to do now is take the information. Yeah, and I love like you said, the rule of threes. Like, what are we happy with? What are we kind of neutral with? And what would we maybe want to have, make some commentary that maybe we're not pleased with, or that not, I hate the word pleased, but that we would like to recommend outside of what AIR determined. And we have to remember that we need to base that just not on opinion and, and kind of like what other hats we wear. We really have to come at it as a member of this subcommittee and understanding that we're not all subject matter experts on every single nuance of this topic. And we were brought to this subcommittee because we all bring different strengths to this. And so I just want to remind everyone that we're not here to eviscerate, applaud. We're just here to really take the data and make some recommendations based on that. But that report is already with SDE. So, and then our report will become part of the larger Bergen Commission report, which will go to the legislature, likely land with the Ed Committee, probably approps, maybe finance, for our recommendations to then be interpreted. And hopefully, if we need additional legislation to address these things, that's the intention. So just wanted to frame it in that. So yeah, and I think Leslie and I both agree, like we're not the ones that want to yap about, our perspective right away. We'll come kind of towards the end of this. And like I said, next week when we hopefully get everyone together again, because we are approaching that July 1 deadline. And so we'd just like to open it up to, the three of you here to hear, kind of keeping that framework in mind, what you guys would like to contribute, questions, opinions, thoughts. I'll open it up.
I'm happy to defer to anybody else, but I have thoughts about it.
Well, then go ahead, John. That's fine. Why don't you get started?
I thought that they performed the charge that they were given well. I thought that they identified the issues that educators face in doing their job well. I thought that the end result was hoping to get a car with no gas in it to run better by editing the owner's manual. The simple fact is that educators are overburdened because there's not enough people to do the job. I'll give you 1, 2, 3. They're overburdened because there are too many communities that can't afford to pay the people to do the job. So that if you're going to work in Bridgeport, if you're working in Bridgeport and they offer you $20,000 more to move to Darien to do the same job, Bridgeport suddenly loses their responsibility. And third, we have managed to design the dumbest possible way for funding education in the world. If you're a small town and you need one half full-time equivalent speech and language pathologist, there is no way for you to get that in the state of Connecticut. You're just out of luck. If you're a medium-sized town like mine and you need 2.5, you're going to have to hire 3 to meet those responsibilities. We set up the risks to do that. The risks are not doing their job on that. The simple matter is, if we do not say you got to have more people, you got to have more money to hire the people, and you've got to distribute that resource more efficiently, we're going to be a failure.
Thank you. Amy or Stephanie, do you want to share anything?
So one of the uplifts that I saw in this is, especially in those charts that they provided about the caseload versus workload management, I think is so telling, and it's so easy to read and so in your face that even if people are saying the caseload size is manageable, nothing else about it is manageable. And I think that is such an important piece that's usually missing, because as a special education teacher, I hear a lot about like, oh, well, are your caseload sizes equitable? And a lot of us are usually shouting into the void that it's not necessarily about the number that we're dealing with. And I like how this study focuses on that. I think it's more supportive of us than some other studies that we've seen in the past that talk primarily about caseload sizes. So that was nice to see. One of the concerns or questions that I had kind of going back to this is like if they're noticing that, they were talking about some exemplary numbers of caseload sizes, like school psychologists being 1 to 500. If those types of things aren't happening, where does the responsibility fall? Because we're, running into a lot of districts that can't afford to hire more. We're dealing with a lot of districts that are laying off right now. So if we know that these things are best practices and we want to start moving towards this, where is the responsibility going to fall? Financially, mostly, to make sure that these things are happening for our students and our educators.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, the thing that we're constantly trying to figure out in the education committee in the legislature is, I was talking about this, I had a town hall last night, and we were comparing the need for example, more para support in districts to home health aides. Although they're probably lower on the rung in terms of salary and benefits that they receive, they are so intrinsically valuable to the overall success. We were talking about patients and healthcare, but it's the same with like the special ed dynamic in classroom. If you don't have all those pieces in place and you can't find the professionals to fill those spaces, all of this analysis really doesn't mean anything. It means something, but it doesn't mean anything. And so we were talking last night about how we've been trying to figure this out for years, and we continue to create programs, really good programs around, workforce pipelines, especially around education and special education, especially. And we have a teacher shortage, and then we have even more drastic shortage around, to your point, special educators, and then horribly, lacking in paraeducators. And to your point, if you don't match that with the dollars to support them financially, why would anyone go into that profession? Why would anybody follow that path? And so, like, while this is an analysis of, a snapshot of right now, I agree with you. What it's telling us is that it's not so much the caseload, although that was surprising to me. It's more all the tasks that fall now under that cannot be accomplished in a normal, typical day. Just because you don't have a typical classroom and your tasks are not typical. So I completely hear you and think that that's really important that we make sure that we provide that perspective.
And one point where I'm torn here is, I think a good part of the report kind of just validates that there are differences in among districts.
Right.
But let's be real here. I feel like it's I mean, John got at it when you named Bridgeport and Darien. And I'll admit I stayed more at the beginning of the report and I didn't get to the end. All right. I love a good summary at the beginning and I need to spend more time with it over the long weekend. But the Connecticut is classic for saying we have differences among towns, but not naming the racial and economic differences that are rooted in a failure to be equitable. And I mean, look at it with the housing debate that we have to preserve the charm of the towns. It's
Yeah.
not about charm. It's
Yeah.
about perpetuating racist policies. So it's frustrating that we might end up just doubling down on allowing differences when I don't think that is the intention of anybody here. And I don't think it's the intention of legislators either. But why do we somehow like do carve outs for inequity?
Yeah. Well, I know this year, we did a one-time funding, exercise to really try to lift up districts who are struggling. I mean, just here in Guilford, we finally passed a referendum after 2 failures. And there are big cuts in there.
Right. No, I saw.
And
And
yeah,
that's crazy that you're getting
crazy.
cuts and we're not. I mean, this is rare, right?
Yeah, yeah. And you're seeing it a lot of suburban budgets this year.
Yeah.
And so because everyone is strapped.
Yeah.
Everyone's paying 4.50 at the gas pump, no matter where economically you are.
Yep.
So yes, I totally agree with you. And I think one of the things that we are going to hopefully do, again, I've been doing this 8 years on Board of Ed, 40 years in the legislature, is this formula, as John referenced, that we have that just doesn't solve it. And it has not caught up with inflation since 2013. So we are so grossly underfunding every district. But to your point, and it's creating such a divide because we also have such a, I'm vice chair of finance. So like I go on my soapbox about a regressive tax structure. Like I can't stand it and how we rely so much on property taxes. And of course, you're going to end up with inequities because if you have a stronger tax base, you're going to have more money for your schools. And so, I'm hopeful around this blue ribbon commission that the governor has put together, and we've got some really good people on it to try to finally tackle this formula and really come up with something that, to your point, creates some real equity. Because we are going to be poaching of teachers has already started. I saw it happening several years, right, post-COVID, like about a year out after that, we started seeing even, comparable districts are like poaching each other's teachers, just because they could offering bonuses and off because there was such a lot of teachers left the profession, understandably so. And so I think you're so right, Leslie, until we really, um, create more equity around this, we're going to still see more districts. And that's why the charts were so interesting because I'm so glad that they reached out to so many variety of districts, because it's not surprising that, it's interesting to me that the opinions are very similar of the special educators in like a Darien and a whatever, a New Haven or Bridgeport. Like their experience is the same thing. Probably the volume is very different, right? But um yeah, and it's nice to say out of this report that, we want to provide a framework. I don't believe in mandating things from the state level to districts. I've seen too firsthand what that does to communities. So, you know, in trying to make these recommendations to try to make things better and to try to give districts some tools and some frameworks about how to better manage this, that's going to be really valuable while we're also trying to fix the money piece. Um, because you can't build something from nothing. And we can tell these districts all we want to and recommend all we want to. And at the end of the day, if they don't have the money to hire 2 more special ed teachers, like, our budget that got cut just now, we were going to hire another special ed director for elementary. We're not doing that now. And so that load is going to land on our middle school and our high school, and our director, for 3,000 kids. So
There's
yes.
also not the workforce to do that, right?
Right.
So you
No.
can't find speech pathologists and school psychologists and special education teachers. So, that would be the fear of any work on workload analysis is, okay, so now you're putting in writing something that we can't follow through with, which
Right.
makes it even more frustrating for everyone, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it is interesting to see the number of staff that actually participated. And either you look at, when you're looking at quantitative studies and you have such a minimal sample size of volunteers, it kind of skews the information a little bit too. And I think that's important for everyone to consider, right? Like, who are the staff that actually participated? They would be the ones that are typically overwhelmed and want to share that as well, right?
Right.
So I think that is something, I'm not denying that it's there, but I do think that's a piece that we need to consider. And I do believe, and I know AIR has said this, the different responsibilities of social workers and psychologists across districts definitely impacts the workload, right? What are they expected to do within their roles? How diverse is that? And I like how in this it does outline some of those things that are maybe general education responsibilities that we're asking the special education staff to do. And that's always our concern about mixing up like MTSS with special education, right? No, that's a regular ed thing. So we don't want special ed staff to, we want them involved, but not to bear the sole responsibility. Those are the little things. Medicaid, that's a huge time sucker for a lot of individuals. If there's a way to streamline the Medicaid process. I know that's my speech pathologist, that's one of the biggest things for them is having to change. They just did a huge change on how they document services and it's increased their workload significantly.
Yeah.
And
Sadly, a
that's
lot of that is intentional, right? It's
right.
to make the system more challenging and to have folks fall off of it. You know, what you were saying is so resonant because, we were talking about this in a different context about, we never hear the praise. We only, like, it was in a different context, but, as legislators, it's very rare. I mean, it's nice. I do get the emails like, thank you so much, doing a great job. I'm so happy about this. But that's probably one. And then there's seven that are like, I'm really unhappy with this. And I want that, but that's the human nature. Right. And so I really agree with you. Like it would have been, right. The people are going to respond and be like, "Ugh, I want to get this off my chest. I want this to be considered. Um,
Yeah, and
and
those sample
yeah.
sizes are pretty small, right?
Mhm.
10 social
Mhm.
workers, 28. So when you're thinking statewide, 18
Yeah.
speech pathologists, right? Like that's a really small sample size. So, just something to, or
Yeah.
that's not even who was selected. You had 7 social workers that did it, 12 school psychs, 11 speech paths. That's not those aren't huge numbers. Um, and I do think, I'm not denying the results, but I do think that is something that needs to be referenced to.
Mhm. Absolutely.
It's interesting. The school psychologist program at UConn currently has 6 students in it.
Mm-hmm.
4 of them are from out of state. So our likely addition to our in-state pool at the end of that program is 2. And I know that Amy is good and she'll get both of them, but
John, I was just thinking, I'm like, I'm hiring a school psychologist and I had 15 applicants and they're all in-state, UConn, UHeart, and UConn and UHeart. And they're all pretty quality.
Yeah,
So,
but they
but you're
just aren't
right? That's a huge fear of ours is that students aren't going into it.
right.
Yeah.
And
That's like, remember when I had the professor from UConn on the literacy, she has 11 students in her master's program to be
Right.
literacy coaches. So yeah, it's just, I know
it's
we have to
so
build.
the the way to address this problem is not just to provide money to the districts to be able to hire anybody because there ain't nobody there to hire. So we need to think more down the road and think, let's provide incentives for students to start this thing this year. And
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
not going to solve any of our problems this year, but maybe it solves our problems 5 years down the road.
Absolutely.
And I know it's
But
Yeah.
hard to think that way when you have annual budgets.
It is, but Connecticut's in the higher end of states that pay, right?
Yeah.
Granted, our cost of living is higher, but when you look at the attractability, I just read a study not too long ago about the attractability of education in Connecticut versus the other 50 states. We're in the top 10. So um, I think if we can just increase that a little bit more, to your point, John, maybe we can attract more out-of-state students to come apply and move to Connecticut.
So we'll do what Darien does to Bridgeport
Yeah.
to Connecticut will do to Arkansas what Darien does to Bridgeport.
So, you know what's interesting? I was on the plane with somebody yesterday. His son teaches in Aspen. So what's your first thought, right? I'm like, how does your son afford to teach and live in Aspen, right? So Aspen actually leases houses to their teachers at a reduced rate so they can afford to live near where they teach.
See,
Like,
that's brilliant. Yeah.
you know, if you think outside the box like that, like, is there a way that we can make it more affordable to live in Connecticut, to work at a teacher or at that salary level, right? So just thinking like things like that, because I thought that was brilliant,
That's
right?
what happens when you
Yeah.
have Hunter Thompson as your mayor for a while.
Yeah.
We have a program, I say we, the Friends Center in New Haven. It's a early childhood education center, but they have done this amazing thing, and now other states are studying it, and I've come to know them pretty well, is they had their center and they actually took over an abandoned movie theater and converted it into classrooms and all this. And they also purchased a piece of property. And then they teamed up with the Yale Graduate School of Architecture, had the students and professors design two homes that the educators live in rent free, cost free for a minimum of 2 years so they can start to build their own savings, build their own credit, whatever that is, and it keeps them wanting to work there, and
Yeah.
it provides a stable quality of life for them and their family. And they actually just built their third building on this land. And so I believe Michigan has come out several times to study it. But to your point, I see how expensive it is to live here. So to your point, you ask an educator, a young educator out of grad school to start at like 45, $50,000. You can't get an apartment. You can't afford that. So I think you're exactly right that we have to start looking at this about, either some stipend program or something, some commitment. In New York, one of my daughters is a freshman at Vassar. She's finished her first year, and God bless her, she thinks she wants to be an educator. She's pretty rock solid on that, which we're thrilled, because at first she was going to be a physics major, and we're like, okay, what are we going to do with that? But okay. But New York has a really interesting program that in your fourth year, after you finish your 4 years of undergrad, they put you in this intense program for 6 months that allows you to enter the classroom, and then they allow you then to get your master's degree, but you give them 5 years in New
Yep.
York. So it's almost like the military. Like they trade off, we're going to help you, we're going to get you to the point where you can at least walk in a classroom, and then we're going to keep you at getting your education, and in return you're going to stay here with us for 5 years. It's a huge, I mean, it's a great deal for young educators. So I saw the governor a couple weeks ago and I told him about it. I said, Governor, we need to be getting creative about this, because to your point, I go, we we are lacking in educators, and we need to make, and Connecticut is very expensive to live in, but it's a great quality of life. But what
Right.
you're missing here is that delta that makes it possible for them to choose here.
Right.
And so could we create some sort of, arrangement, or some sort of program that we invest in them and they invest back in us.
Right.
Um, Kind of like they do with, Leslie, there's like a national program where you teach in like underserved communities. And I think like you either get your loans forgiven. It's public service. So there's a public
Teach,
service
Teach
loan
for
forgiveness
America.
program.
Yeah.
Teach
Yeah,
for
Teach
America.
America, right,
Teach
and
America.
others.
But even
You know,
beyond
but
Teach for America, there's 10 years in and you can
yes,
apply for loan forgiveness.
yes,
Yep.
And that's for
yeah.
folks who went a more traditional route as well.
Right. So I
Mhm.
think you guys are right. I think there's so much more to this than mean, this information is really helpful and it confirms what we already knew, but it's
Mhm.
interesting to see how it wasn't really caseload, it was more the workload piece
Mhm.
and when you brought up Medicaid, I didn't even think of that,
Oh,
that's
huge.
huge. So that's when that
We
comes
tried to
into play.
negotiate. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead. I'm
You
sorry.
did,
Can you
you
guys
did,
explain to me how that typically would work with, like, say, an example student? Like, how would that play out?
Sure. So, say you're a speech pathologist and you have a group of 3 kids. After your half-hour session, you have to go into the system and document individually for each of the students your goals of the meeting, your data for the meeting, and evidence of what they said or did, right? Which is all things that you should be doing anyway. However, taking the time to go into the system and like duplicate data that you're already doing for individual students is a lot of work. And when you're seeing 20 kids a day, um, because, you know, we have a lot of students that are eligible for Medicaid services. So it's a huge paperwork burden. Huge, right, Leslie?
yeah.
Like it's just huge for them.
Oh, our
And it used to be
members,
they
it's
would
major
be able to
concern.
put, yeah, they used to be able to put the whole group in and just duplicate it for the whole group because they were doing it for the group, but now they need every individual. They changed it to increase the workload as opposed to decrease the workload. And granted, there's a lot of Medicaid fraud going on, and there's reasons for it, um, but it's definitely huge, huge.
And,
This comes
and
back to the variability in the workload, right? If we're I do appreciate the shift from caseload to workload, but the variability is so wide. And unions are trying our best to get language into the CBA because I see that the report does say CBAs are going to dictate a lot of this. We try to get compensation for Medicaid billing in our CBA.
Okay.
They're not going to touch that.
Yeah.
And I did notice that only 2 urban, and granted there were some rural, and I know that they are underfunded as well. And I do get your point, Rep Rader, on recent suburban cuts, but Bridgeport and Stanford were the only urban CBAs that they looked at. Um, we've got some much more dire conditions in Meriden, New Britain, Waterbury, Hartford, and those experiences might have come up in some of the focus groups and survey data, but they didn't come up in the CBA analysis either. And it's hard if it feels like we're just going to be stuck in this loop
Mhm.
of, well, we can go back and fix it at the local level, and it's like, no, but you know,
Yeah.
there's
Right.
a reason why we haven't fixed it at the local level.
And
And
it's
that's what
hard
we
at
need to
the
push.
it's hard at the local level because you don't want to appear to be favoriting one set of teachers over another, right? You're sitting there around the collective bargaining table. Who's to say that special education teachers should get paid more or subsidized more than a gen ed teacher, right? Like that's a hard conversation to have because there's already a divide and you don't want to deepen that divide. I know I've spent most of my career as an administrator trying to close the wall between gen ed and special ed. So not that that's a concern when you're looking at collective bargaining.
and let me add, vis-a-vis the Medicaid issue, in addition to all the paperwork, DPH takes half of the money before it goes down to the districts.
Right.
And we've submitted bills for the past 2 years to deal with that.
Right.
And the they've run into the insurmountable fiscal note wall. Um, so, but yes, Matt Lesser has been instrumental in trying to get those through.
I remember talking when I was on the select committee for special ed, John, I think it was you that brought up that there's, some districts, small districts, like almost rural, if you will, around Connecticut that just can't attract or keep, a part-time speech pathologist, for example. And so we talked, and the risks, to your comment, aren't really picking that up. They're picking up the slack where needed. But, there's these conversations happening around regionalization, around a lot of things, simply because our student population is decreasing and all the data shows that, some districts it's going to decrease and plateau and then maybe go back up in like 8 to 10 years. But right now we're in this downward pattern. Um, and so what does that look like? In terms of sharing resources and working, like to your point, working with a reduced number of professionals available in Connecticut around this. And a lot of districts are hesitant to do that because they're afraid of letting go of their individuality and their independence. Um, just like a lot of municipalities are afraid to start sharing, police forces and fire and all of that stuff where they could probably be saving a lot of money. And I'm not on either side opinion of it yet. I think it's very individual per community, but um, I feel like there's something to be said for thinking about that too. I know, like even in our district here in Guilford, like it's not the same, but we have an art teacher and a music teacher that travel between buildings because we don't need, one per building. We can't afford one per building. It's a special. So we've kind of managed to do that where we've had to make cuts. We didn't want to get rid of the language program in the elementary schools, so we reduced having a full-time. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. But
Yep.
I wonder if that's also a way to look at this too with some of these districts that just can't justify it in their budgets and in terms of their needs,
Back,
and
back
sharing
in the early
resources.
60s, when we eliminated
Yeah.
counties in the state, they commissioned a study to review this.
Hmm.
And after a year, the study came back and said that Connecticut should eliminate the towns and keep the counties
Oh,
because it was a more efficient way of doing things.
yeah.
Uh, that study is, well, where most studies that the state contracts are. Uh, um, but absolutely, you're not going to get thrown out of office for using the R word, are you?
Well, I really don't. I'm not a huge fan of the idea for certain things. And then other things I see, like, we don't have trash removal in Guilford, but like other towns do. And I'm like, that would be really smart to, use your buying power and bring some communities together. I think police force, that's tough because you really want to make sure that your officers really know your community. They come to your community events, they're in your schools. Like, so I'm not against it for certain things, but I'm not a blanket person that wants to see that just happen, especially around education. It's really complicated. But I will say, we built this really successful, sorry, that's my puppy. We built this really successful transition academy in Guilford for 18 to 22-year-olds. And other neighboring districts around us have requested could we open it up to other, other students? And we would love to. And we just don't have the ability to fund that right now and to grow that. But it's a model of how we could, because right now with the seed grants, um, that's not really what they're intended to do. You can't use it to build regional programs. You can build it to build individual district programs. So there's some changes that need to be made just there alone, where
Yep.
we could be building really successful programs and sharing that resource with,
With
neighboring communities.
transition is the place that this is happening. I know Windsor and Bloomfield have a tremendous shared program.
Yeah,
Berlin has a shared program. Uh, there's
it's been great
probably a
here.
dozen
Yeah.
around the state. And so absolutely, if we can, if we can have a stable of school psychologists in Hartford who fill in the needs in the correct region,
Yeah.
Godspeed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And obviously it's even greater in East Con and where I'm drawing a blank on the northwest corner risk.
I can't remember right now.
At
Yeah.
Advance?
At Advance, thank you. Yeah. Um,
So I think, what's helpful, it's so helpful to hear you guys talk about this stuff because you're the ones that are out there living it and doing it and seeing it. So I'm curious, hopefully we'll get more folks. Leslie and I were chatting, and I think we landed on Monday. Leslie, was that, yeah, what were we saying? What was the time? I feel like,
2 o'clock on Monday?
how does that work for all of you here, just to get a temperature, and would folks be available at all?
I am in interviews
Okay.
until 3.
Okay.
Three, I mean, 3 could work if possibly. I know we have something at 4. I think both of us said we had something at 4.
Yeah, I have,
Um,
I have something at 4.
we could do 2:30 and then you could join once you're ready, Amy, and then
Yeah.
gives us a little cushion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would that work for you, Stephanie or John?
I
So
can
Monday around 2:30, we're thinking.
I can
Are you
manage that.
listening, Mia? Because I need.
I'll answer all the questions that they have for you, Amy. No problem.
I and John, I trust that you would answer them
Careful.
just the way I would.
No, this is good. Yeah, I feel like if we can get a few more folks here, and then, because what I'd like to do, and Leslie and I feel like we do need to kind of hone in on kind of an executive summary response. And so we want to take the input that you all are providing to us and kind of go and draft something up and then give you all time to review it, make comments, because the clock is ticking. I'm sure there'll be a little leeway, but I would love for us to kind of meet that deadline if we can. And this is not going to be a verbose 15-page, it's, a few page executive summary of our input, indications, our findings, in conjunction with the report. And what I want to make sure is if someone from SDE can be with us on Monday. So Mia, maybe offline, if we could reach out to the SDE folks and see if they are available, and that we would ask them to hopefully be able to kind of hear us and walk us through kind of formulating this kind of executive summary. That would be really helpful.
Along with,
And if you
oh, sorry.
Go
if you're
ahead.
gonna do
Along with Brian, who else would that be within us?
Cynthia and I mean, if someone from Air can be available, great. I don't think at this point that's necessary. Yeah.
I would get somebody in their workforce development office if you possibly can. I
Mm.
mean, that's probably more important than Brian, frankly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we're talking, I mean, the bottom line is there ain't enough bodies to do the work. And so
Yeah. And
um,
also I was thinking if we can invite RepCon and just see if she can attend, because I think she's been wanting to, it just hasn't worked out. But let's just include her in the communications, and I'll text her and just see if she can drop in. Because as the chair of the overarching committee, I think it would be good for her to, right,
And a
Leslie?
special ed teacher.
Yes, exactly. So have her hear things before our final. So that would be great. All right, well, I want to be thoughtful of everyone's time. Unless there's anything else, then we'll reconvene on Monday. Hopefully give those of you who want to kind of go back, and like Leslie and I need to get down into the nitty-gritty and come with kind of some overarching conclusions and thoughts. And hopefully we'll get a few more of our subcommittee members to join us on Monday, or maybe Mia, what we could encourage is if folks aren't going to be available, to please share any input they want
Well,
via
I was going to
email.
jump in on that,
Yeah.
Representative. Is it inviting chaos to send a Google Doc out and have people capture thoughts?
No, I don't think it's terrible. I don't know how it really works for us at CGA, Mia, because we kind of have to be careful. We don't actually have a platform for Google Doc sharing, but we
Oh,
use
I mean, I
Outlook.
could do it, or does that make you liable if I do it?
No, I think it's fine. I think it's okay as long as
Okay.
I don't know if Mia can administer it because we have, kind of.
I think I'm able to, because I think I have this the same because I do have like this there's the ed testimony CGA email, and I can do like Google Docs on it. Do you want me to do a Google Doc, or do you want me to do like a Google form where people can kind of like each input their own
Oh,
response, just so that it doesn't get
yeah.
all like clouded on one doc?
And then you can pull that all into one
Mhm.
kind of summary. How do you think about that, Leslie? That way people can,
I hear what you're saying on the protecting against like chaos in the doc, but I also think I know we're not going to do a group assignment where everyone's going to write the report together because that, but
no,
but
it's
I do
impossible.
like the idea of like me reading Amy's take, me reading Stephanie's take. Just
Okay.
because it's a version of a conversation. But I'm not married to it. I just that's my one thought, and I'm curious what Amy, Stephanie, and John, you might be the users or the practitioners of it. Would you prefer a form or a doc, or does it not matter?
It doesn't matter to me.
I like the idea of the Google Doc so that we can all see each other. Like even seeing I can't remember the woman's name who sent out the email with all of like her thoughts on it. Like there were
Right.
so many that were similar to mine that I'm like, okay, like I think we're all interpreting certain things the
Sure.
same way. So it's nice to see that part. So if we could
Okay.
do that, I think it would be helpful.
Right, that's fine then. Well,
As
let's
long as I get training on how to do it.
we can
Call
send
me, John.
directions. I'm
Baby
not
boomer
kidding.
guys.
John, I'll get
Okay.
it's just like Microsoft Word doc.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just jump
okay,
in
well, I
and
guess
type.
somebody to do
You
that
just
for
jump in
me
and type, but
too.
you'll see that other people have typed and people can go in and like edit and you'll see like words moving around. It's fine. I mean, it's rare that we'll all be in it at the same time.
Right.
But you'll get to see who's entered what. It's just, yeah, it's as
You
Leslie said, it's
you
like a
have to
Word doc.
understand that I take notes in fountain pen.
You and
I,
my dad, John.
I'm still taking notes on paper. I'm old school that way too.
He
But
said fountain pen.
oh God, I'm not fountain pen. No way.
Oh, I love it.
Too fancy.
For the email to the people in SDE, do you want me to send that out or Rep Rate, or do you want which one of us would you
I
prefer
think it's
send
fine
that?
to come from you and just
Okay.
copy Leslie and I on that communication. That would be great. You don't have to copy the whole committee on the SDE communication, but just copy us and then copy Caroline, just so my aide, so she's kind of in, or BCC her, whatever, so she sees it. And then, yeah, and then to the committee members, just share that we're going to meet Monday and create the invite. And then also, if you just indicate or in the same email, if you can, create this Google Doc, just give it the title of our subcommittee and kind of the workloads analysis report. And that we're just opening it up for folks to share commentary. Please limit pages of commentary, that this is just going to be a shared document where we're going to kind of get, overarching themes from everybody in preparation for our meeting next week.
And then you said Cynthia, what's her last name?
Oh, it's an S last name. She should be on the list, on the email distribution list. It's an S. It's SIN. It's not C. It's not a C.
It's SYN.
It's Sone Moyano is her last name.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Did you find her? Okay.
Let me see. Let me check my email.
I can email it to you, Mia, if it's
I've
helpful.
got it right here. I can.
Pop it in. All right, guys, I'm gonna head out.
Yeah, everyone
Take
can
care,
go.
Amy.
I
Enjoy
can coordinate.
graduations, everybody.
Yes, great graduations. Hope the weather gods stay in your favor.
Yes.
And
Me too.
we have
No
lots of
tornadoes.
happy
We got a
graduates.
tornado warning, so
Oh
Yeah,
boy.
here we go into summer.
love it.
Hold on to your
And yeah, you
mortarboard.
just let me know if you need my help with anything. You can email me or text me, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Mia.